Dig deeper into the story, explore the constellations, and read the complete transcripts at whatthepigpromised.com. There will be a short scene after the closing credits.
Privilege accelerates until its velocity becomes terminal. The impact destroys those who fed its mass, those in their orbits, and all caught unaware within its radius. That is how Sister Tefra teaches it. Noctul has grown massive, heavy with gluttony, not faith. If ever there was a virtue in it, greed has long since profaned it. In these letters, the sun writes of the constant stillness, breath and silence held in balance. Perhaps once there was truth in that, but the Father knows what I know. The speakers grow heavy on their gifts, taking their pleasures before the constant takes her due. Brother Halvor commissioned a fine tapestry for the chapel, woven with the phrase, "Beware those who smile as they shepherd you to slaughter." In his sermons, however, he is less careful. He reminds us that faith festers when it feeds on the faithful. Ill-ruined, cautionary bindings of Gretsch Hollow.
Father, I know you never cared for what I believe. You still pray to the Stone Mother and talk like this world has a shape that matters. But I've walked past the chapel's glow. I've heard the world's real shape. It's a wheel, turning and grinding us to dust. I used to think that we had to keep turning with it. But Noctul showed me the truth. The constant does not turn. She waits, still and whole, beyond the spiral. Only in her stillness can we be spared. I gave my sister to her. Be proud of your children, not bitter. Breath or silence. It makes no difference now. The speakers decide which is granted to Ada, and we won't know until the wheel stops for us too. Father, I need you to understand. In Ash Sermons 4:6, High Speaker Voss tells us, "The constant asks not for mercy, but grants silence to the generous." Breath and stillness hold equal weight in her sight. She alone instructs her speaker which shall be bestowed. Rejoice, Father. Even silence serves. Noctul remains. Your son, Terran.
Terran. The speakers tell you that mercy is for the weak. You give someone up and the constant takes what's hers? Breath or silence? It's all the same. The speakers know which way it will go. For Ada, pray it's silence. If not, the speakers have needs. And those who still have breath, they don't come back. Not really. Hark Wren kept shouting it in the square today. Children started whispering it back, like a game. Mercy? That's not how it works. You give someone up, and the constant takes them as she wills, living or dead. It's the same, or so they say. But the speakers, Ada was a gift that pleased them. Those gifts sometimes live, kept close, made to serve. Your people call it honor, but it seems no one says it too loud. Most reckon it's never quick. Days, weeks. By the time the constant calls them home, there's not much left to call. I cannot follow you, son. To me, you are silence already. What the Pig Promised. A tale of skies as empty as promises. Voices resonating across the threads of time. Written, performed, and produced by Sean Fitzmaurice. VoiceOverNerd.com. Episode 4. The Ashes of Echoes. Dear listener, fear not. Nothing's ever truly gone, and nothing gained nor lost. It just transforms unnoticed, forgotten, until it's not. Like sickness or a story, or a lifetime, or a plot. Author unknown. Chapter 13. Set It and Forget It. An investigative extraction from the mission logs of Kellor Voss. General Havor, General Vale, Lieutenants Red and Thule. Thank you for assembling on such short notice. To bring our newly cleared officers up to speed without delay, the experiment is far more vast than you've been led to believe. Public record lists it at nearly 2 centuries of operation, and that's true, as we perceive time. But inside the field, it's been tens of years, or hundreds of thousands of years, depending on the day. The environment translates Tefronian equations into living models, each recursion searching for its own best outcome without interference from us, until now. Which makes this a critical inflection point. The idea is simple. When the system reaches apex or collapse, it restarts. Each repetition carries forward what worked and forgets what didn't, allowing the future to build on itself. It's a self-perfecting evolution. Set it and forget it. Until now. Data analysis shows new irregularities. The recursions are lasting longer, well beyond predicted limits. Multiple microloops have begun forming within the primary cycle. The working hypothesis is entities inside the field have learned to use the system for their own purposes. What those purposes are, we do not yet know. We've slowed the field to near real time for direct observation and deployment of boots on the ground. But the fact that we are now inside changes the system fundamentally. It's no longer a closed environment. Our operative, codenamed Tango 1, was deployed for reconnaissance at the most anomalous temporal region. I'm monitoring his code directly, but it's anomalous. His pattern shows repeated termination events occurring every 5 to 60 minutes. Yet the process resumes each time. In other words, it looks like he's dying between 24 and 300 times daily. The data makes no sense. General Halvor, I recommend preparing a team to enter the field for verification and possible extraction. For the record, Tango 1 is decorated. He's highly trained in combat and espionage, and should be holding his own in there for now. Chapter 14. 12 seconds. Oh, but there have been some oddities for sure. You want to hear about one of the strangest ones? Ever since I learned how to, in a sense, change the opening scene, I've managed a few mini-adventures between deaths. Usually I block the blade with my eyes closed and cut down the nasty, smelly cult kids with surprising grace, if I do say so myself. Things have indeed gotten strange. I'm aware that any, murder I commit will get undone in an hour or less. So I've taken on Tefra a few times. She's killed me in the most wonderful ways. Bashed in my skull several times, each better than the last. Even took my head clean off once. I still haven't gotten used to the pain of being nearly split in half from the groin up. I try to avoid that at all costs. I'm coming very close to striking her with my sword, or whatever this flat black prop is. I told her I loved her this one time. I wish I could have seen her face. I am fairly sure I had my jaw shattered immediately after. Or maybe I dreamt it as I let out my final breath. Oh, oddities, right. One of the strangest ones so far. I was waking up again, expecting that scream, which I now find rather amusing. I don't know that he's fully committed to it. You know, it's like he's trying to act it out for the others, and he's a terrible actor. Maybe I was an actor. Oh dear, I'd be a terrible one. I'll stick to tax collecting. Or I could be an exterminator. What a guilt-free way to use my new skills without murdering anyone. So the tragic stream did indeed start as normal, but it was silenced rather abruptly. Thwip, thwip, thwip. Projectiles pierced the back of each cultist's skull, and then silence. For a second, the axe clanged to the ground, followed by the dull thuds of bodies. I opened my eyes, and before me stood 5 men and women in matching black uniforms. They moved with tephra-like precision, but colder. Every motion measured, fast, inevitable. As if they'd rehearsed this 1,000 times. One crouched beside the priest in the wheelchair, inspecting, maybe cataloging, the collar around his throat. He handled it carefully, like removing it would break something. Then he left it where it was. Others quietly collected blood samples from each of the kids, and none of them spoke. The people in black, that is. The kids were dead. They couldn't speak. Anyways, Tephra appeared in the doorway of the chapel, silent, composed, as if patiently collecting data. I don't know if she knew them, but something in her expression, the faintest trace of a familiar calculation. Chris P., a.k.a. John, protective as ever, placed himself clumsily, yet sincerely, between Sara and everything, a wibbly wall of flesh and worry. It was the kind of courage only innocence could pull off. And Sara, she just stood there with those colored stones she carries with her like they mean something. This time she was staring at them differently, like they'd just told her a secret. The one who appeared to be the leader looked at me in the eye and saluted, as if he knew who I was. I tried to respond. I tried to salute back, call out, ask who the hell they thought I was. But my body was still locked. Sleep paralysis, the usual gift. At least someone thinks they know who I am. One final motion, and they vanished. No sound, no anything. Just gone. And then the silence. The kind that remembers things, even when you don't want it to. Oh, right, I should say that they were rather efficient indeed. This all happened in exactly 12 seconds.
Generals, science staff, thank you for meeting remotely. I have some disturbing news. As you know, I led a team into the experiment to put eyes on Tango 1. And I'll share those unexpected details momentarily, but more importantly, we are alarmed to find that the experiment has been breached. Apparently for quite some time now, by the experiment's internal chronology. Dr. Wint and his team are reviewing the data as we speak. He notes that, while these entities are human, further analysis of the code shows something interesting. Generals, first let me explain. In molecular chemistry, most biological structures have what we call handedness, like your left hand and your right hand. The molecules are made of the same material, but they twist in opposite directions. Terrestrial life shares the same twist, one universal handedness. We call this homocryality. There's no reason life couldn't have evolved the opposite way, but once a direction is chosen, it stays, shaping everything that follows, even the way electrons move through living systems. In short, the entire architecture of life, from its chemistry to the flow of energy itself, depends on that one tiny choice of orientation. These humans have the opposite molecular handedness. And the best conclusion we have is that they originated from venom. Generals, this is our first concrete evidence. Not only for the phase world's existence, but that life seems to have evolved there in parallel with our own. The implications are staggering. But we now have twice as much life to save from annihilation. I've been working on a plan since well before we introduced Tango 1 into the system. And I feel more strongly now than ever that it is the correct plan.
Chapter 15. The Bull's Breath. From the archives of Divergence history. Kept in the Missar Stoyle Cavern libraries beneath Braylith University of Mathemagics and Technomancy. Read by archivist Father Thed Krelak. Long before Thorgal Rune, the Peaceful, united a shattered race and saved them from perpetual violence, a few among the Minotaurs had already grown weary of war. Among them was the shaman, high keeper of the largest herd in Venom. He begged for peace. He preached it to his congregation, but none would listen. For them, violence was a prayer. It was their culture, and nobody wanted his peace. But his faith was great, and he believed that the gods, too, wanted peace among all living things, as he did. He prayed night after night, eyes toward Morath, the great winged bison who guards the heavens. But without an answer, his faith wavered. One dusk, as he pleaded for a sign, he saw something new within Morath's domain. A puff of light, so faint it vanished when looked at directly, yet lingered at the edge of sight. It was certainly the bull's breath, the living exhale of the god who had heard him. He prayed with renewed passion until, at last, he received an answer. He was certain of it. The voice spoke of unity, of an end to all bloodshed, of peace. And the shaman believed, because it was what he too wanted for the world. The god plucked Morath, the great bison, from the stars, vast and obedient, a beast of thunder and smoke, and it obeyed the shaman. The shaman rode the bison into the villages and mazes, demanding peace, despite the people's passion for war and instinct for violence. When they did not comply, he commanded the bison to gore those who disobeyed. And so peace came, for a time. Yet peace without healing settled like ash, soft at first, then suffocating. And when the peace he had forced on them by divine decree exhaled, there was war beyond any there ever was. Entire herds were culled. Bloodlines ended. The rivers ran red. The shaman returned to demand peace, commanding Morath to trample any who bore arms. When the herd learned how to hide their weapons, the breath whispered again, and they both agreed. Kill them all. The clans, terrified, united at last against him. When his defeat became certain, he ordered the bison to rise and bear him away. The beast unfurled its wings and obeyed. Had the god lied to him? Perhaps he misunderstood the divine directive. To obey perfectly and finally bring peace, he must reach the god itself. So he commanded the bison higher, through the winds, through the cold, through the veil where the stars begin. He flew for 1,000 years toward the bull's breath, which never drew near. He passed by the very gods and legends written among the stars, and wonders not suited for mortals. The universe presented him with more glory, knowledge, and beauty than he could ever want. But he passed them all by. His eyes remained fixed upon the breath. Soon he had flown further than any star that shined, and all there was before him, from the corner of his eye, was the bull's breath, hanging alone in the dark, as distant as it was before.
Generals, I've reviewed the Phenom specimens again with the science team, and despite their molecular differences, they are unmistakably human. There's a problem, however, and I'll break it down. The current evolutionary state of the system is extraordinary. It's formed a village about a mile wide, a working community of roughly 500 people. As we would have expected, they're built from Terran DNA, but the anomalies we're seeing come from what we now call the Phenom insertions. The code shows they exist within the experiment, but we can't physically locate them. Their numbers rise and fall as if people were entering and leaving through hidden doors. Generals, there is another issue that's harder to grasp. We found Terrans inside. Let me repeat, we've found actual Terran-born humans inside the field, who seem to have taken control of parts of the system for reasons we don't yet understand. The data also shows new Terrans appearing suddenly, and then vanishing again through death or relocation. It looks as if people from our world are being pulled in by the thousands, and most of them don't survive long. The experiment has been compromised. We can't reset the recursions by normal methods. I have, however, been developing a contingency plan since I first learned about the project. It's extreme. But I believe, without question, that it's the right course. I've been asked by the science team how we are going to evacuate the Terrans that we can't locate. The answer is, if we can't locate them, we don't. My team and I are fully committed to this plan. We've come too far to hesitate now. Okay, let me explain.
Chapter 16. Ashes and Echoes. Hi, good to meet you. I'm Sara. Pardon the voice, I was up really early this morning, and Maureen says I sound like an old man before I have my coffee. Anyways, the day the stranger showed up, I was 19. It was morning. The equations I'd been studying were under my skin, and I couldn't stop thinking about a variable that I wanted to add. At the chapel, there are these resonance stones that Sister Tefra made. We think they'll be able to manifest my time recursive equations. Big concept, I know, but it's important here. They'd been holding the wrong frequency, a kind of coldness in my hands. I thought they just needed calibration. But when Pip was in Marine's room, thumping a mouse right above my head, I could already remember him bringing it to me, headless, white-furred. And sure enough, moments later, there he was in the doorway with the little dead gift, exactly as I had just remembered it. Thanks, Pip, by the way. Look, I'll keep this simple. If I could apply my equations to the stones, I could reset time from a certain point. Which, yes, raises a few ethical nightmares, so it's not something I'd actually try. Except, this might be what it would look like if I already had. So I ran to the chapel, without my coffee, mind you, and grabbed the stones. And when I stepped back out, I saw 4 people in the field, flickering in and out, like a bad transmission. They were wearing the robes of the cult of Swilborn, and they were armed. And then all of a sudden, there was someone new there, the stranger. He flickered in, and then they all vanished. I looked down at the stones, and I adjusted my equations, just like it was coming to me before I got out of bed. They began to hum, vibrating against my palms, each with its own harmony of temperature and sound. My equations worked. But moments later, everything changed. I was standing in the same spot I had been a moment before, but everything was gone, burned to the ground by a fire that must have turned the village into a forge inside the cylindrical wall. The central tower still stood, from the ground to the heavens, untouched, but everything else was a fine ash. The chapel, the only stone structure in Gratch Hollow, still had its walls, but the roof and the doors were gone. Nothing, no one could have survived inside. I looked over, and where the Swillborn cultists should have been flickering or standing, they now just lay on the ground, with fresh blood gushing from the backs of their skulls. They got here before I did, and which was well after the fire. But who could have disabled them that quickly? By all rights, Tefra should have been dead. Then another figure caught my attention. An older man. He was wearing all black, what looked like a battered uniform. He was bewildered as he walked through the layer of ash. He carried with him a round object with a purple pulsating orb mounted in its center, like a jewel. And just as I saw him, the stranger flickered in, silent. I'd say he was asleep, standing up. But before his eyes opened, his sword lifted sharply, as if to block an invisible attack. The old soldier, as I call the guy in black, didn't seem to notice the stranger. Or me. His face and stance said he had just endured something unbearable. The stranger shouted over to him, "You there, what happened here?" The old soldier ignored him. He lifted the black circle and aimed it towards the dead Swillborn priest slumped from his wheelchair. The priest had an identical circle, worn as a collar, and as the old soldier approached, both collars began to resonate, the purple gems pulsing in rhythm. The synchronization deepened and then turned violent. I thought one might explode. He backed away, and he looked at me with the most hollow eyes I've ever seen. He was confused, he was grieving. The hollowness was filling with tears. And then he looked over at the stranger, and he asked quietly, "Am I still Kellor Voss?" His face twitched, and he reached into his pocket. He looked surprised to pull out a small black box. He fumbled with it, and then he just vanished. No sound. Nothing. He left his collar, though, on the ground, the gem pulsing violet and spinning down like a coin.
Generals, the operation is complete. The field is stabilized. A clean recursion is expected. The absolute right thing to do. Correction to the record. Population loss is... The code relay confirms multiple clusters. Thousands still active, but outside the cleared zone. This should be impossible. Wait. Oh, there's more. Over 1,000 new Terran code signals have just appeared. For the record, I still stand by the decision. It was necessary. Every model confirmed it. It should have worked. Listen to me.
What the Pig Promised is written, performed, and produced by Sean Fitzmaurice. A voiceover nerd production. Copyright 2025. All rights reserved. VoiceOverNerd.com. Featuring Charlie Fitzmaurice as Terran. I think it worked. Despite the phase instability, it worked. I'm here. Open your eyes. I made it. Oh, gods. These are my last breaths. My skin's fused with the uniform. Gods, even the bones. Pain is unbearable. It's unbearable. I deserve this. Pain. Bleeding out. Last chance. Don't die. Die, Kellor. Tango 1. Here. Don't die. My arm. God, grab the collar. Got you. Got him. Pull close. Shut up so we can hear. Don't talk. Barely move. Listen. I am Kellor Voss. I burned Cracked Hollow.